Qapla' warriors? Qapla' warriors! Today is a good day to learn about the glory of Rome, specifically the ancient Roman Empire. We won't be spanning into the Holy Roman Empire. Today was a very hot day in this area. I believe the hottest all year so far, and I was out on the road all day for work. So I was not feeling well at all, had a terrible headache. So when I came home, I went ahead and I had 1 ube cookie and 5 oatmeal cookies, which were delicious and chewy. And I thoroughly enjoyed them. I felt I deserved some self-care of cookie indulgence due to the hot day I had to deal with. So, today we will be learning about Rome, but before we get started, let's review the schedule. For those wondering, there's a new point system apparently. I know very little about it. All that I know is you accumulate points for doing super chats, and then it puts you on some kind of ranking board. On YouTube, specifically. I don't know any more than that. Yes, Lagario, those are the ones I baked. They turned out all wrong because I over-creamed the butter and sugar, and it became whipped instead of creamed. And so they spread too much. They didn't look how they were supposed to. However, I can report they tasted delicious, but they were too ugly to take into work. Because I've made these cookies for my coworkers before, so they know how they're supposed to look. However, can confirm they were delicious. So if you want your cookies thinner and chewier, over-whip the butter so that they flatten out because of too much air. Anyway, oh, I see a request from Zephyr. Zephyr will be saving that for the last 10 minutes of stream. It's too difficult to go back and forth between teaching and the impressions, so we'll keep that there. Don't worry, we'll save time and we'll get all of them in. Thank you, Out of Context. I enjoyed the cookies. I planned to only have 2. I went with 5 instead, because, you know, 5's my favorite number. Hello, Hades. Were you here the week we did the Greek gods? Or not the Greek gods, it was an emphasis on Zeus, but Hades was mentioned. Hello, Joshua. Joshua, again last night you were ripped off. I forgot to do the song again, and I apologize. Alright, reviewing the schedule. Mondays, gaming. Tuesdays, karaoke. Next week is the Disney karaoke stream. I know that Zephyr's worried about copyright, so maybe I'll do it in a funny accent. We'll see. Wednesdays, class with Dr. Export. This week, Rome. Next week, planning on doing Sharks, because we promised that if K ever came out, we would do Sharks in honor of the fact that Sharks have been in this cycle every week and never been chosen. So, yes. And then, Thursday's gaming, tomorrow more Tales of Seku, and Friday Nikkei guest host stream. Once, it'll be, Jan's turn again. Yes, Trilith, that works very well for bread as well. I have done that. I haven't tried that trick for cookies, but I've learned it for bread. Because, you know, when I buy a nice loaf of bread, I don't want to let it go to waste. Although you can turn it into homemade croutons. I've done that once, and it was fantastic. Alright. So. Well, Joshua, before you duck out, let me know, and I'll do the song for you, alright? Because I've already ripped you off twice this week after promising. I keep my promises. Alright, so this topic is Rome. Now, the question of the day was, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? Because I believe it was last summer that the whole Roman Empire thing was going on? And they said that men think about it very often. Does that mean I'm secretly a man? Because I think about the Roman Empire quite often. Quite often, I think, by most people's standards. So go ahead and comment in chat how often you think about the Roman Empire. I would say at least weekly. Although I do believe most of you thought I was a man originally, till I began streaming. And you could hear live that I was a woman. Am a woman. Not was. Sleepy, what the hell? Thank you, Zephyr. I appreciate it. I meant that lovingly. So, wait a minute. Zephyr Sleepy never thinks about it. Hades often does. Every day for Azel. Out of context. How chilling. Yes, monthly. Alright. I would guess at least once a week for myself. Some weeks once a day. Depends on what I'm doing. Alright, let's get started. We will be discussing the origins of Rome. Oh, thank you, 1F. 1F. Use urine. Well, I imagine it's effective. Does it bleach clothes? Be a good way to keep your toga clean. And, yes. Weekly. Ah, yes. Alright, so the history of Rome... So the origins of Rome, both... Oh, yes, further. I'll be touching on that. Both the legendary origins of Rome and the historical origins of Rome. So, can anyone guess what this image is of here? Does anyone know enough about Rome to recognize this statue? I actually saw this statue, or a replica of it, when I was in Rome years ago. So some of these things we'll be discussing I saw in person. And let me tell you, if you have a chance to go to Rome, you take that chance. Yes, Romulus and Remus, yes. Alright, so Lagario knows. And so, yes, the legend is of Romulus and Remus. So these were twin brothers born to a human mother who was a Vestal virgin and the god of war, Mars, supposedly in 753 BC. Now, Vestal virgins swore an oath of celibacy to never marry or bear children or, to be celibate. And because their oath was to Vesta, the goddess of the hearth. The goddess of the hearth. And so by becoming impregnated, she had broken her vow. For that reason, Lagario, how are you going to know they're boys? Then, for that reason, the king ordered that Romulus and Remus be unalived by placing them in a basket in the Tiber River. A la Moses, I suppose. Although Moses was for very different reasons. That was to save Moses. This was to unalive them. Just put them out in the elements. However, the basket washed up on shore and was found by a female wolf, who nursed them and cared for them until they were found by a shepherd, who raised them as shepherds, who raised them as their own. And this image is popular in Rome, particularly the icon of the wolf. And then, yes. Is that a Nirvana cover, Rigginss? And then as adults, so they were raised by the shepherds. Then as adults, they helped overthrow the king who had tried to unalive them. No, not by Zeus. This was by Mars, the god of war, but basically same situation here. And then, so they overthrew that king that tried to unalive them, but then they decided to build a kingdom along the shore of the Tiber River where their basket had been left. However, they disagreed about the precise spot that they should build. So what do you think they did to solve this issue? Any guesses? Ah, yes, Lagario, that's true. I was short on time, so I didn't get some of that. Yes, Bravenwolf, Romulus unalived Remus. Not to be confused with Remus Lupin, Professor of Defense Against the Dark Arts and Werewolf. So Romulus unalived Remus and chose to build the kingdom on one of the 7 hills of Rome, called the Palatine Hill. And he named it Roma after himself because he was very humble. Yes, Romulus, Charlemagne, indeed, the home city, the home planet of the Romulans. Yes, correct, Bravenwolf. This was the ancient solution. If someone is doing something you don't like, they disagree with you, they offend you, just unalive them, and that takes care of it. So this is this beautiful... I want you to really imprint this image into your brains. When you go to fall asleep tonight, I want you to think about this image. Now, wait a minute. Yes. So this is the Palatine Hill. Today. Incredible, isn't it? Look how much of it still stands. Yes, his twin brother. Yes, Bravenwolf, that's correct. Well, technically, Lagario, it was Roma. So would it be Rima? Anyway, so the actual history is there were a collection of hilltop hamlets. So there were villages on the tops of the hills. And they grew, as they grew, they became an important town because of their location on the Tiber River. the river of legend where the basket was left adrift. This was a trade route, so over time this area became very important, which increased the importance of the town. And then, early Rome was heavily influenced by the Etruscans, who themselves were influenced by the Greeks. And that is why they, I would assume Latin is gendered, but I'm not certain. But it did give rise to some gendered languages. Anyway, they were influenced by the Etruscans, who were influenced by the Greeks. And for this reason, many of the Greek legends and the gods overlap with the Etruscans and the Greeks. And originally they were ruled by the Etruscans. Anybody remember the Etruscans? See? So they had their area of influence. And so originally they were ruled by the Etruscans. In 616 BC, Etruscan Tarquinius Priscus became king, and the scattered villages of Rome were unified into one city, with stone buildings replacing the wooden huts. So isn't that nice? So that is when it really started to become Rome. And then, regarding Latin, so Latin originated in this area called Latium, not to be confused with Latinum, which is a currency used in the future during the time of Starfleet. So, Latium was the area, and this is where Latin developed among the Latini. It was a dialect that became Latin eventually. Latin is a member of the Indo-European language family, as is English. Here's an image to help explain it better, though. So here's one image. Latin gave rise to all these languages, or influenced all these languages, such as Spanish and French. Italian had quite an influence, obviously because of the spread of Rome, the growth of Rome. Then here, oh, I'm sorry, this is a bit small. So you can see, oh dear. Well, English should be here as well, under the Proto-Germanic branch. So English is under here as well, on this right side. Indo-European, and then Latin is also Indo-European, and then gave rise to these others. Redacted, English is derived from Germanic, but heavily influenced by Latin. Yes, French isn't on here, but it should be. French, Portuguese, this is very simplified. Lots of things are missing from the right and the left, but it's just to give you a general idea. All right, moving on. Let's discuss, well, before we go into the emperors with this disturbing image, we will discuss the periods of Rome, the main periods that it's divided into 4 main periods, if you will. So there was well, it's more like 3. Yes, exactly, God of Wolves. It's a cousin to Latin. English is a cousin to Latin, but they both have the great-grandparent of Indo-European. Excuse me. Yes, I'm with you, Ravenwolf. Sometimes when they make these ones from the statues, they are quite strange. So the first approximately 625 BC, Etruria and Latium grew into Rome. So those villages joined together and created Rome. Or Romulus and Remus, or Romulus founded it, whatever you want to say. All right. And then the first period was the period of kings. This lasted from 625 BC to 510 BC. During this period, it was known as the period of kings because there were 6 different kings. Etruscans. During this time, there was a time of great military and economic advancements. Rome grew, and there was the early formation of the Roman constitution, the early beginnings of it. And it ended, at the end of this period of kings, the Etruscans' power declined, and it became more Rome and no longer taken over, or no longer controlled by Etruscans. Their power was declining. Next came the Republic Rome. This was from 510 BC to 31 BC, so lasted quite a while. And there were no more kings during this period. They switched to where the upper classes ruled, but dictators could rule during crisis. And then in 451 BC, they drafted the 12 Tables, which was their original code of laws. So this included laws, civic laws, social laws, and religious laws. And during this republic, they continued to expand and gain control of the entire Italian peninsula by 338 BC. Yes, Zephyr, you're on the right track. And then, due to the Punic Wars, Punic, you heard me, it's Punic. There's an N in the middle, not a B. Punic Wars allowed Rome to take control of Carthage and Corinth, and they became the dominant maritime power in the Mediterranean. Then there was a period of chaos and civil war, so they elected the dictator Oh, thank you, Sleepy, for science, yes. Trying to raise yourself up on the board above 1F there. For science, the science of Rome. They did do a lot of fascinating science. And then... so they elected the dictator L. Cornelius Sulla. And he ruled for several years, and then after his resignation, the unrest continued in the realm. Then they shifted to... they began... The origins of the shift to imperialism began with Julius Caesar taking control. So 51 BC, Caesar conquered Celtic Gaul, which was the first spread of the empire beyond the Mediterranean. Eventually, Caesar was unalived, famously, et tu, Brute, and, Shakespeare was fascinated by this as well. And then his child, Octavius, I believe, is that right? Ruled with Mark Antony. No, that's not right. I can't think of his child's name. It was Caesarion or something. Little Caesar. His child ruled with Mark Antony, his adopted child. Ah, thank you, Agario. And then in 31 BC, Rome took over Egypt. So this gave rise eventually to... Oh, thank you, 1F. I believe the salad is actually named after, like a Mexican man or something. I've read. But maybe I'm confusing myself. Oh dear, I lost my place. Anyway, so Caesar, they took over Rome. I mean, they took over Egypt, which eventually led to, the takeover of Egypt. So then the Ptolemies ruled Egypt, of course, including Cleopatra. And then, Octavian, Caesar's successor, became Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. Yes, that's the one, Lagario. You were all correct. They were all one and the same. Redacted, I don't have that included. I tried to fit in as much as possible, but 1 hour is not a lot of time for the entire history of ancient Rome. We can certainly do another Rome one where we dive more in depth to certain topics. This is more an overview. So then the next... So he was the first emperor of Rome, Augustus/Octavian. And this led to Imperial Rome from 31 BC to 4076 AD. Excuse me. They experienced several decades of peace, prosperity, and expansion. And in 117 AD, Rome reached its largest extent, thousands of square miles, and 3 continents. It spanned 3 continents, Asia Minor, Northern Africa, and most of Europe. In AD 286, the Roman Empire split into East and West, which is a very important time in history, and they had separate emperors. And the Eastern Roman Empire is typically known as the Byzantine Empire, which included Constantinople. And then the Western Roman Empire began to decline, and in AD 455, the Western Roman Empire was sacked by the Vandals, finally falling or reaching its end in AD 476. And then the Byzantine Empire, or the Eastern Roman Empire survived into the 15th century, eventually falling to the Turks in 1453. So yes, Justinian, the Byzantines, very interesting. I remember learning about that. Just a moment, I have a piece of oatmeal in my throat from my cookie. Alright. So we will be reviewing some of the best and worst emperors of Rome. Just a few, brief overview. Zephyr, I did not. This is a very quick overview. I can't fit everything, I'm afraid. You're free to enlighten us, though, Zephyr. I was trying to include as much of the things you guys mentioned as possible. I didn't even get to food. Yes, we'll be discussing some of that redacted. So here's the first of one of the worst emperors. Oh, I see, Zephyr. So this is Caligula. I'm sure you've heard of him. So terrible that he's quite famous. You hear him mentioned, but you might not have known too much about him. Yes, Rigginss, it's quite tragic. Were your grandparents from Constantinople? Alright, Caligula. He ruled only from 37 to 41 AD, so clearly not popular. Lagaria, I'm trying, but I'll have to talk a lot faster and include no questions. So Caligula. Supposedly, some say he had a large personality shift after an illness, which possibly triggered it. After which he became erratic and cruel. Yes, that's right, Con. He executed his political rivals and his family members, at least some of them, and eventually declared himself a living god and demanded to be worshipped as such, and would dress himself as a deity. And, yeah, started to reach his peak when he took his soldiers to the waters and demanded they attack the waves in order for him to fight and destroy Neptune, aka Poseidon to the Greeks. So he was like, I'm a god and I must defeat this god of the waters, so I'm gonna poke at them with my swords and my spears and my arrows, and that should do the trick. You know how water is. And he was also not well liked by the senators because he would humiliate them, such as by making them run beside his chariot or perform menial tasks. Then he also did heavy financial mismanagement, and in order to try to deal with this, he levied heavy taxes on the people. Yes, I'm sure that didn't help 1F. And, so, yes, financial mismanagement, violence, erratic behavior, cruel behavior, heavy taxes. So, not popular. He also is rumored to have appointed his own horse, to one of the top political positions. Instead of a human senator, he chose his horse. So, eventually, unsurprisingly, he was unalived by a fellow Roman. They were like, we've had enough of your shit. That horse thing was the final straw. No, its name was like, not Invictus, but very similar, like Inictus or something. Alright, I chose this picture, the least flattering one of Nero. Look at that double chin. I thought it would be a good one. Because he was an asshole, so I figured I'm not going to choose a good photo. A good, suppose, is this an image of a statue? So next, also infamous and well known, Nero, 56 to 68 AD, not to be confused with Nero the Nike. Nero, and he's known as being the bloodiest. And during his reign is when the Great Fire of Rome took place. And many people believed he had started the fire himself to make space for architectural projects. However, he said, nah bro, it wasn't me. He blamed the Christians and brutally persecuted them as punishment for it. Yes, Lagario, his mother was Agrippina, who controlled him a great deal until he decided to unalive her, as well as his own wife. So he unalived his own wife and mother. He was known as being extravagant, unstable, and cruel, and his reign led to rebellions, and so eventually he decided to unalive himself, and his final words were to have supposedly have been, what a great actor dies in me? Something along those lines. Peak drama. And for those confused, the Umus in the chat are an FGO reference. Yes, Nero is so big that he's a Nike and FGO. Although technically it's not him in Nike, but you get what I'm saying. Alright. So that's Nero. Everyone's heard of him. Hey, Hades, I mentioned Caesar briefly. So the next is Caracalla. And, oops, where did he go? Oh, there he is, Caracalla. So Caracalla was supposed to lead with his brother, whose name was like Ghetto or something. No, it can't be Ghetto. Geno? I'm close. Anyway, he was supposed to co-rule with his brother, but he wasn't a fan of that. So he decided to unalive his brother and take power. And he didn't stop there. He massacred his brother's supporters. So not such a nice guy. And then he was determined to have military pursuits to bring glory and expand the empire. He had some successes, but in so... Ah, what an artist-itis in me. That's right. That's right, Lagario. So dramatic. His military pursuits, though they had some success, they also drained the resources of the empire, as well as the money. And he was eventually unalived by one of his own soldiers. So, people were not happy with him. Get some more water. Alright, next. Which one is this? This is Marcus Aurelius. So Marcus Aurelius was dearly beloved. Some even said he was the perfect emperor. He was an intellectual who did a great deal of writing. He was known to have been a good man, and good to his subjects, and he had a great deal. He is most known for his military success. He got Germania, Germany, and Parthia, although I don't know what Parthia is in modern day. Why don't we check that? Modern day Parthia is Iran. So, approximately part of Iran. So, congratulations, Marcus Aurelius. Yes, that's right, 1F. They wanted to conquest and then assimilate. Like the Borg! Anyway, sorry. Marcus Aurelius, dearly beloved, intellectual, excellent military leader. His men loved him. The people loved him. He was beloved. Yes, Persia. Exactly, Khan. This, I believe this one is Hadrian. So you've probably heard of Hadrian's Wall. He ruled from AD 117 to 134. That's correct, Lagario. Marcus Aurelius wrote the book called Meditations. And then, Hadrian. He also is well known to have had a male lover whose name I forgot. He was in love with him. I guess I don't know if they were a lover, but he was in love with him. Or, admired him. Something like that. Who eventually drowned in the Nile River. He was very sad about that, so he had a city named after him and made him a god. So, you know, that was very nice of him. He's also well known for several architectural monuments, including Hadrian's Wall, the Pantheon, several temples, and a mausoleum. Yes, Aurelius' son was Commodus, who was known to not be a very good emperor. There are the 5 good emperors. They're known as the 5 good emperors. It's a period of time of relative peace and success of Rome. Zephyr, I already finished the bad emperors. Did I not say that? I'm sorry, these are the good ones. Marcus Aurelius. So the 3 bad ones were Caligula, Nero, and Caracalla. I'm on to the good ones, the 3 good ones. Marcus Aurelius, Hadrian. And then if you Google, you will see there are also 5 emperors known as the 5 good emperors. I didn't include all of them, but that's a period of time of some good sons. I didn't include his son because Commodus is not known for being a very good emperor. All right. Anybody recognize this? I feel like this is a pretty well-known one. This is Trajan. Ruled from AD 98 to 117. He was born in modern-day Spain. Not Spain then, of course. He was beloved by... Well, I thought this was Trajan. Yes, it is. He was beloved by the military for the hardships he experienced alongside them. He was beloved by ordinary people due to his public welfare system, and he was beloved by the Senate. Also, Trajan is a very overused font. Good, but overused. He also enlarged the empire by conquering modern-day Romania. And, oh, thank you, 1F. Bowl cuts. I don't know, 1F. I think the bowl cut suits him. Lothario, did I visit Trajan's column? Ooh. I can't remember, but I want to say yes. I'll have to double check. He did build Trajan's column, Trajan's forum, Trajan's market, and an aqueduct as well. So he built some important things as well. So those are some emperors of Rome. We'll briefly discuss religion in Rome. So as you know, for much of its history, ancient Rome was polytheistic. It followed in the footsteps of Greek and Etruscan mythology / religion. And then Christianity at the time. Christianity began, of course, during the Roman Empire. And because, of course, Jesus was supposed to have been born then. And Christians started out as a small group and were, of course, persecuted. They started very small, they were persecuted, there was martyrdom of many Christians. Redacted aqueducts were built throughout the time of Rome, not just through a variety of times, I believe. There were many, many built. Yes, exactly, Agario. So the Christians were very small at first. Then around 300 BC, there was a population of maybe 10%. Later, Constantine made Christianity the religion of the realm, which grew it greatly. And so then it grew to a significantly larger number over the time. And eventually, by near the end of Rome, it was one of the dominant religions. So quite interesting. Many people were drawn to it because in the beginning they were very open to having newcomers, of course. And, yes. Yes, bathhouses. Yes, yes, now they had to worship one god. Judaism, of course, was present as well, but was also a minority compared to the polytheism at the beginning. Yes, originally they hated monotheism. They allowed Judaism and Christianity to exist to an extent, but were mainly polytheistic, and then over the period of the empire, Christianity grew. All right. Moving on to the gladiators. So, the gladiators, of course, fought in the Colosseum. I believe I have an image of the Colosseum later. So, most of the gladiators were slaves. They belonged to the infame class. So, they were slaves. Some of them were people who had been captured and were then slaves. Excuse me. There were several types of gladiator. And they all had different combat styles that they were trained in. So the Mirmillo were heavily armored gladiators that used a large oblong shield, I think like that, and a sword called a gladius. Their most distinctive trait was the full cover helmet decorated with a fish-shaped crest. So you can see one here. Then there were Thraxes, which wore similar armor to the Mirmillo, but who used a smaller rectangular shield. This one perhaps. But was decorated with a griffin. I'm sorry. The helmet was also covered the entire head, but it was decorated with a griffin instead of a fish. So I'm guessing this one. Then there were the Retiarius, the famous gladiators, wielding a large net and a trident. See that one here? Is that this? They wore lighter armor and had no shield, and fought by attempting to trap their opponents under the net and stabbing at them with their three-pronged spear. That sounds like a ripoff to me. Out of context, I don't believe they were freed if they didn't die. I don't believe that's correct. Then there were Essedarius, which were mounted gladiators. There's little information on them, but they fought on mounted chariots. Seems like a rip-off to the one that's not on a chariot. I assume this is a representation of them right here. And then there were the Hoplomachus, which translates to armed fighter in Greek. They were gladiators who carried a throwing spear, a short sword, a small round shield, and who sported a plumed helmet. And then also there were occasionally female gladiators. They existed, but they were infrequent. They were more of a peculiarity. Yes, 1F, the Romans were really into gladiators. Something I wanted to talk about today, but I don't think we'll have time for, is it's quite fascinating if you read about if they went to the Colosseum to see the gladiators. There was food that they would sell, you know, that people would come around and they could buy the stadium food, just like we do today. It was quite different from today, but still. Here's some gladiators. Look at them, they're ripped. Bro. Chill out, bro. Something to note. I did not know that redacted. I'm sure that works very well. When I was in Rome, I took an incredible tour of the Colosseum that included some areas that they don't typically include in tours. And I got to go to the bottom, to the area where the gladiators wait to come up. And I was able to put my feet on brick floor where the gladiators would have stood. I took a picture of my feet, but I won't be posting that. Because I wanted to show myself standing where the gladiators stood. It's awesome. So the gladiators, as I said, they were the different kinds would be trained in different styles of combat. They would go to gladiator training. Yes, exactly, Depthfeather. They would go to gladiator training, which was harsh and strict, and they studied with a master of a type of combat. And yes, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start this, everyone. Let's calm down. And then, someone had a comment that I was going to comment on. If I was going to a gladiator match, I'd bring olives. Love olives. I can't see the comment that I was going to comment on, but one of the reasons that the gladiators typically were not unalived in the matches, they preferred to have them live to fight another day because it was very expensive to, quote, keep gladiators for the training, for the feeding of them, and their keep, their housing and everything. Some famous gladiators included Crixus, who was a Gallic slave and gladiator that escaped captivity and became one of the leaders of the rebel army in the Third Servile War between slaves and the Roman Republic. Another famous gladiator, Emperor Commodus, the son of Marcus Aurelius, who was portrayed by Joaquin Phoenix, who I'm a fan of, he's a vegan, in the film Gladiator. He was a known fan of gladiator combat, and he even ventured into the arena himself many times, which people didn't like. They thought it was undignified. He was also known to be a cruel fighter who used the privilege of his position to set up fights against, it says here, handicapped opponents who had no chance of fighting back, and whom he would maim and unalive. So people really hated him. That was part of why they hated him. Priscus and Verus were a pair of gladiators who had the honor of fighting each other at the inauguration of the Flavian Amphitheater. It is said that after battling for hours, they agreed to end the fight in a draw, at which point Emperor Titus granted them the Rudis, making them free men. So it didn't happen every time, but sometimes. Spiculus was a rock star of the gladiator world. Was he the Rock? He was a favorite of the bloody Emperor Nero, who lavished him with gifts, and when overthrown, Nero called on him because he wanted to die at his hands, but Spiculus didn't respond to his request. And then, yes, Spartacus was a real gladiator who did lead the real army and everything. He was a real person. Spartacus wasn't unalived in the arena, but another way. And then gladiator games, they were organized, highly organized, and they were refereed, and did not always end in death. Sometimes they did, but if they always ended in death, it would be very expensive for the keepers of the gladiators. They also did not fight animals. Usually the fighting of animals was for execution. There was one other thing I was going to say that someone commented on, and I was going to follow up about that. Dawn, I can't remember. Someone made a comment that I was going to follow up on, but anyway. So that's the gladiators. All right, let's move on to some of the fantastic places in Rome. Here's the Forum. So, the Forum, isn't that beautiful? This is a picture of the Forum modern day. I went to the Forum, and I think that was my favorite part of my trip, perhaps, besides standing where the gladiators stood. The Forum is magnificent. Truly. It's astonishing because all of this is up now. So it still stood. It still stands today, I mean. So here's the Forum. Here's the Colosseum. I took a picture from right here. Or perhaps the other side, but I took a picture just like this. No, I don't want that. Those are the only good pictures on this one. Oh well. Here's a picture of a Roman aqueduct. Roman aqueducts, they made hundreds of Roman aqueducts during the Empire. And some of them spanned as much as 60 miles, carrying water 60 miles away. And they were built so well that some are still in use as aqueducts today. So here's one. Here's another. Astonishing, isn't it? They mastered the use of arches. Yes, so Roman concrete was unique. It was made of slaked lime and volcanic ash and volcanic rocks and was extremely strong, as evidenced by the fact that, look at this. This is Roman concrete. And it still stands today. Thousands of years later. Here's another picture of the Roman Forum. So I like this because it kind of shows you this to today. And what's astonishing too is much of this was colored or covered in metal. It wasn't all white like we see now. We often imagine this of all the buildings of being stark white. Same thing within Greece. We imagine everything stark white marble. Most things were actually painted with murals or covered in metal. So it's quite fascinating. Here's another picture of the Forum. If you look around, maybe this is the day that I went. You might see me down here. I believe this is the arch. Yes, Hades, I know this isn't Rome, but I read this fascinating story about the Greeks. I believe it was the Greeks. They would color, clothe, and perfume the statues of the gods. And they had special lighting so that the light would come through and shine like them on a spotlight and show off their colors. Fascinating, isn't it? By the way, I'm not sure what's going on with the YouTube community ranking thing, but I appreciate the super chats and regular chats as well. YouTube and Broken Systems. Name a more iconic duo. Right now, 1F is leading, Sleepy's in second place, so everybody please thank them. Or say it in Latin if you know. Okay, I guess I just really like the Forum, so here's another picture of the Forum. But it's astonishing, isn't it? These are, I believe, Ionic columns. I'm familiar with Ionic, Doric, and Corinthian columns. Discussing the accomplishments and influence of Rome. Another one of their accomplishments was bound books. So they created the Codex. I'm not sure if this is an accurate representation. I was trying to find a picture, but I was in a hurry. They created the Codex, which was the first form of bound book, versus what had previously been used, which was scrolls or tablets. Christians were keen on the bound book and used it to make copies of the Bible. Oh, I thought I had a picture. Where did it go? Could have sworn I had a picture of a Roman road. Oh well. Take you back to this. So other accomplishments of the Roman Empire. Just a few minutes, Logmania. So the Roman aqueducts, as I mentioned, the Roman concrete. Rome actually had also newspapers. It was known as the Acta Diurna, daily acts, I don't know. They were written on metal or stone and then placed in key places such as the Roman Forum. And these newspapers typically included details of Roman military victories, lists of games and gladiatorial bouts, birth and death notices, and even human interest stories. So they kind of originated the newspaper. Another accomplishment and influence was welfare, and social security. So they had subsidized food, education, and other things. So in 122 BC, the emperor instituted Lex Frumentaria, which was a government supply of cheap grain. And then, let's take you back here. And then, oh dear, I scrolled. Trajan also instituted the Alimenta, which was to clothe, feed, and educate orphans and poor children. They also added other government-controlled price items such as wine, which people were obviously very happy about, but some suggest it may have led to the, contributed to the downfall. I don't know about that. I have to do some more digging. Now let's get an image of a Roman road here. I don't know how that image went missing. Here's a good one. So, here's the Roman roads. Obviously, they're terrible today, but some are still in use today. But wear good shoes or you will break your ankle. When we were in Rome, my sister did break her foot walking on the cobblestones. They're still in use today. They were made from dirt, gravel, and bricks. And they were very precise and made straight roads to allow for water drainage. And during the Empire, they built over 50,000 miles of road, which also gave them a military advantage. They included stone mile markers and signs to help travelers. See, if we had more time, I would talk about clothes and food and other forms of entertainment. Here's one. Oops, whoops, wrong button. Here's another one. Someone asked for some ancient... What the hell? Stop it. Alright, whatever, you can see it. Sorry, having a problem. Alright, you can see these shoes here. They had a variety of styles as well, isn't that quite fascinating? And three more Roman accomplishments. Let me get my steps in while I tell you these. So there was the Julian calendar. So they originally used the old calendars, such as the Greek that followed the moon, but Julius Caesar and Sosigenes, an astronomer, created the Julian calendar, which was based on the sun instead of the moon. And then they changed the calendar from 355 days to 365 days. And they eventually made it a 12-month calendar as well. Yes, thank you, Zephyr. I'll go ahead and move off of the feet. Anyway, and their calendar was very good. It was just 11 minutes off, which is why the Gregorian calendar was created, which fixed that issue by adjusting the leap years. So just a bit off. Then as far as law, obviously Rome had a huge influence on the world with law. As I mentioned, they created the 12 tables. Yes, the leap year was invented to deal with that. The 12 tables, which was one of their first systems of law. And then they created the Corpus Juris Civilis. And this included things such as habeas corpus and many other terms that we know today. Oh, thank you, Zephyr. And they remain the basis for many... So these two things remain the basis for many modern legal systems. And it also included concepts such as innocent until proven guilty. Yes, out of context, this is how I hold my head when I take my steps. Is that not what you do? Alright, and the last accomplishment we'll go over before we move on to impressions is surgery. This is one I actually did not know. So they invented the ancient Romans invented a military medical corps, which had field medicine. They also would do physicals on their soldiers, and the medic would also supervise sanitation in the camp. So soldiers actually were so well cared for medically that some of them would even outlive regular Romans. Also, so this field medicine, they invented things such as the hemostatic tourniquet, and get this one, arterial surgical clamps. So they were able to save soldiers' lives on the battlefield with things such as arterial clamps. That blew my mind. I did not know that. Some of the surgeons were even known to disinfect their tools with hot water, which took hundreds more years to become common practice. They did not do that in Tudor times, which was not a good call. So for many years, people were like, well, that's just hocus pocus, sanitizing your tools. That's ridiculous. So, yes. Whew. You see, you asked me if I included these other things, but that took 52 minutes with just the bare minimum. All right, time for impressions, y'all. Give me a moment. You notice my British voice is higher? It's higher, right? Ooh, I want to see that, Zephyr. Is that like a regular movie or like a documentary? Lagario, what's the easiest what? Voice? Redacted, that's probably true. They believed that for quite a while. So I wouldn't be so... Yeah, they did for sure in Elizabethan times still, redacted, so I wouldn't be surprised if the Romans did. That's why, like, I don't think the sterilization of the tools was super widespread, but some of them did do it. I might check that out, Zephyr. That sounds great. Okay, so next class, planning on doing the shark in honor of Kay, but I'm going to put a poll out, a yes-no. If 70% say no to sharks, we'll do something else. If you people just really hate sharks, except for Zephyr. All right, let me do these requests. Zephyr's request, crown. Well, hello! Time for the not-so-fabulous kingdom. Oh, God, my throat. Another one. Roma, Roma, oh, Roma. Another one from Dirt Feather. From Yan. Invictus Roma. Another crown from Dirt Feather. I don't know, Sleepy, but maybe some people do. I domain. What time? Oh, yes. Domand. A 5-hour stream on Rome to learn to model my kingdom proper. Oh, why did I do that in British? Sorry, let me fix that. You guys see how hard it is for me to turn it off once I switch my voice around? Okay. Well, hello, I domain. What chime? Oh, yes. Demand a 5-hour stream on Rome to learn to model my kingdom proper. That was hard. I don't know why. I'm having trouble turning off the British. Come on. Et tu chime? So sad. Oh, and then tomorrow, gaming, Tales of Sekyu, back to my Seduction and Musashi. Alright, grave request. Remember, 1775. Alright, sharks. Looking like we're getting sufficient yes for sharks. I feel like an hour should be a good amount of time for the sharks. Lilywise request. Oh no, Zephyr, you trying to get me stuck? I have watched Gladiator. I think the movie did Joaquin's character better than the true death. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears. I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him. The evil that men do lives after them. The good is often interred with their bones. So let it be with Caesar. The noble Brutus hath told you Caesar was ambitious. If it was so, it was a grievous fault, and grievously hath Caesar answered it. Okay, Simon request. I adore it so much. Oh, sharks. Sharks. Frankly, I'm disappointed Export wouldn't let me travel back in time to see Rome. Got a Wolves Wells request. Oh, my head. Oh, the heat really gave me a headache today. Anybody else? You here, Joshua? For your song? By the way, the new Crown and Crew roundtable talk. Sorry, I kept thinking Royal Hour in my head, and I was like, that's not it. The new roundtable talk came out today. Hope those of you who saw it enjoyed it. It included the new Marion song, and tomorrow the single comes out as its music video. So yes. Another crown request. I hope you all like the art. I think the chair one turned out great. I was happy with that. Hope you enjoyed the song. Alright, I'm gonna do Yan first. Geez, Log, may have to charge you for going to Shakespearean speech. Oh, okay, crown request. He hath brought many captives to Rome. Wait. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the Jeez. Okay, give me a sec. I'm reading this raw. He hath brought many captives home to Rome, whose ransoms did the general coffers fill. Did this in Caesar seem ambitious? When that the poor have cried, Caesar hath wept. Ambition should be made of sterner stuff. Yet Brutus says he was ambitious, and Brutus is an honorable man. You all did see that on the Lupercal I thrice presented him a kingly crown, which he did thrice refuse. Was this ambition? Yeah, Egypt's awesome. I got a great book on Egypt that I highly recommend to anyone who's interested. Dup Feather, crown request. Never gonna let you go. Never gonna let you sleep. Mwahaha. One of my favorite things I read about Egypt in the book that I have is about the children's toys. It blew my mind. They had dolls with movable limbs in ancient Egypt. It was so cool. Quick reminder, you can subscribe to me on Twitch with your Amazon Prime subscription. And I think Prime is having a sale on gift subs. Maybe? Got a Wells request. Oh, by the way, I only made it to Egypt, which is more awful. So yeah, Egypt had some crazy cool stuff too. Ugh, my foot itches. Apparently you guys figured out the In-N-Out export secret menu, which includes most of Crown's crew. No Marion though, unless you guys want me to pass out. Yes, that's true, Gadako, partially because they allowed Egypt to join, but they didn't require, like, the assimilation. They let them continue doing a lot of their regular stuff. Cleopatra could even speak Egyptian. It's something... Alright, I see a siren request. Ooh, Roman roads sure need repair, don't they? Uh-huh. Oh, thank you, 1F. Yes, I definitely know what that means. I'm about to cut out? Wait, it seems you about to pass out. Oh, pass out, KCM. I thought you said the sound was cutting out. Log, I'm gonna have to veto that one. Oh, God. Trony. Okay, I'll try, Zephyr. I've never done her live before. On a beautiful day today. Can I be done? I usually only do her when the crowning crews pop up. Wow, my eyes are really tweaking out right now. Ah, gotcha, 1F. Oh, there goes my light battery again. I guess that's why my eyes tweaking out. I didn't even notice. Usually I notice it go off and I'm like startled. Yeah, which is it? There's also the fire. Is it the Roman fire? Is that what that other one? The Roman, you know what I'm talking about. As Siren? Alright, jeez. Oh, good. Okay, Jim, just the one? What did I can't remember what it was. Was it SHIT? Greek fire. Thank you, God of Wolves. That's what I was looking for. They're like still, yeah, they're trying to figure it out. It's crazy. It's kind of like, I think that must have been what George R.R. Martin was referencing in Game of Thrones. With the special fire that Tyrion has made. Alright, this is sound. I adore it so much. Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. Why did I say it, Lagario? Because in real life, when I'm not at work, I say it a lot. Am I on something? What are you talking about? Oh, you mean my eyes, Hades? Alright, Lagario, nice. Alright. Gotta head out in a few minutes. Got one or two work thing. One work thing I have to do, one work thing I should do, but we'll see if I do it. I'm tired. I was gonna do some stuff today during the workday, but so you know how I drive from client to client. Traffic was like way worse than normal. So instead of having like 10 minutes where I could just sit in my car between clients, I was just constantly driving. Lugmania. Shite. Isn't that how British people say it? Alright. Lorinator, I'm gonna do yours last. I am, however, disappointed Export hasn't talked about Pompeii. Oh, well, it was such a massive disaster in many ways. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, Zephyr. I didn't have time for everything. I told you I'd like to talk about Pompeii, clothing, shoes, food, other forms of entertainment. My favorite books on history talk about all those specifics. They were having a sale. This one store was having a sale on used books, and there were 7 history books I wanted to buy, but it was $88, and I'm trying to be good because I got some medical bills. But I kept a list of them. One was like 24 hours in ancient Rome. Anyway. Dirtfeather, I can do more streams when I hit 100,000 subs and can do this full time. I would totally do this full time if I could, you know, financially sustain myself. Alright, these are the last 3. Alright. 9:05 is the cutoff for requests, okay? Get them in before 9:05. Okay, Chim, that one doesn't count. Alright. No, Dirtfeather, I'm not sick. It was just like, the concussion appointments. I got, like, really late bills for that. Because, like, something happened where, like, I was billed at the original time, but then you know how sometimes insurance will, like, look at it and be like, actually, we're billing you this additional amount. So for a couple things, I went back and had to pay extra. And then I had some specialist appointments, like my cardiologist, so... give me 1 sec. I'm gonna grab the book about ancient Egypt off my shelf because I can't remember the precise name. Okay, the book. It's super heavy. A Year in the Life of Ancient Egypt. It's by Anne Rosalie David. I'll type it for you. A Year in the Life of Ancient Egypt. Yeah, that's a great point, 1F. I know, I was really mad because I got this bill and they're like, we adjusted everything and now you owe $200. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh, sorry, does that one count, K-Chim, or is that regular? Whew. All right. The one I have is hardcover and it's freaking heavy. It's probably available soft. I mean, what do you call it? Paperback? There we go. Okay, request time. All right. Do the crown ones first. Dirtfeather. Sleep is for quitters. More stream. And then Logmanias. Have you heard about Cicero? The famous Roman statesman, lawyer, scholar, philosopher, and academic skeptic? Well, he said this. Probably after an interesting night during which Carpe Venum was his favorite motto. I know I didn't get to like any philosophers or senators. Alright, gonna do Siren next. I adore it so much. I am the glow gup the schwabble double gubba flibber lub blubba blub. Okay. And then the Trony. Let me try this one. It's a beautiful day today. Why does everyone focus on my feet? I think my robotic chair is far more awesome and deserving of attention. Okay, she wants me to be done. She is ready. So yeah, I gotta get my last of my work done. Tomorrow's a slightly shorter day for me, so that'll be nice. And I'll be indoors, so I don't have to deal with the BS heat. I still have a headache because I'm heat intolerant from the circulation issue. Dirtfeather says, go to sleep. Night. Yeah, she's thinking about Rome. She thinks about it a lot. Alright, friends. Thanks for joining. Next week is Sharks. Don't worry, we have many more weeks for the topics. And don't forget, tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., Marian French music video. So, see you tomorrow for Tales of Sekyu as I continue to woo Musashi. Yes, Zephyr, you finally got your sharks. I think that's the first thing you suggested, maybe, and it just took a long time, but I promised you it would happen. All right, everybody. Majram!